Ben, you've been working as a professional educator, professional instrumentalist, and artist for decades. And I
That's
would like
true.
I would like you to talk about your teaching experience and in particular teaching young guitar players. A young guitar player, let's say age 20 years of age,
Hmm.
plays a couple of scales, knows a couple of voicings, played a couple of gigs, in restaurants, and comes to you for a lesson.
Hmm.
And he or she already have something that you like and something that you see that you can help them with. So, first, I would like to start on a positive, very positive note. What it is
Yeah.
that you like about playing of young generation on guitar players?
Um, well, I see a lot of enthusiasm for the music, like more than I've ever seen in any other generation. I think it seems like there's more talent and there's more. There's a greater like baseline level of technical prowess um, among most of the people that I see that are learning, and there's a great passion for it, um, which is great in one sense, and in another sense, it's a little unfortunate that the business is not going to be able to accommodate uh, that much talent.
Mm.
Um, and at least in my experience, I've found most students to be quite receptive to constructive criticism. Um, maybe that's just how they're presenting themselves, and deep down they're really pissed that I'm finding anything wrong. But I do think that people are eager to learn and eager to look at themselves honestly and correct their mistakes or work on their mistakes.
Mm. Are there any common mistakes I mean, instrumental mistakes and stylistic
Mm-hmm.
mistakes that young guitar players do when they come into a lesson with you and you go, oh boy, here we go again. What would you say these common
Well,
mistakes usually are?
obviously everyone's different, but okay, a few common things. I find that people don't often don't have control over the harmony. Like if we're talking about playing over moving harmony, playing over a standard, um, there isn't that absolute mastery of of the harmony. Like sometimes I'll ask somebody to, without me copying for them, play a linear solo and be able to clearly delineate what the harmony is. And I find a lot of people, some people are great at that, but a lot of students are just sound a little bit noodly, and they just don't have that. They haven't quite mastered that skill yet. Um, and then conversely, sometimes when people um, do have the ability to play through changes convincingly, it's more of like a connect the dots sort of approach, and they're not necessarily thinking melodically or even musically, but it's more like like paint by numbers kind of thing, like playing the right scales, the right arpeggios over the right changes, connecting with good voice leading, like all the elements are there correctly, but the ideas seem to be lacking, or they're not putting a priority on ideas, developing ideas, playing compositionally. Um, and that leads me to another observation, which is like a perennial guitar shortcoming, I think, which is the inability to leave space. Um, which is easy because you don't have to breathe. But if you just could somehow um, imagine your playing connected to your breath, that could be a way of circumventing that problem. But just I think it takes it just takes a lot of experience and a lot of and maybe like a greater comfort level with oneself to have the confidence to leave space and to know that leaving space is okay and will actually make your ideas sound better and make your playing stronger. There seems to be people put pressure on themselves to fill every, just to give people more for their money or something, or just to fill up every possible note and or fill up every possible moment with notes, um, without realizing that you can play all the great stuff you've been working on, all the like the coolest licks and whatever. You'll have plenty of time for that. You can still leave a bar empty, leave two bars empty. Um, you're playing will your ideas will only be enhanced by that, and will be it'll like shine a light on what they're doing. You don't want to overload the listener. And I think most people that even that play like that, they won't choose to listen to people like that because it's just not fun. Like what there's nothing to grab onto, So it's an interesting disconnect that I observe sometimes.
You mentioned two very interesting things, although they're very obvious, but you mentioned describing the changes and play in a linear way, maybe
Mm-hmm.
perhaps without accompaniment.
Mm-hmm.
Is there one tip that you would give to those young guitar players that, how to practice this, for instance?
Um, yeah, as an exercise, I would limit myself to just playing chord tones through a chorus of a tune. Um, Only the four notes of a seventh chord, or yeah, and try to voice lead through the changes by step or half step. Um, and when you're able to do that easily, and when you've internalized the changes in the form uh, of a tune, then you could start to let go of that like intense thinking, and you could start to just trust your ears more. And I think the goal is ultimately really to play by ear and have have the knowledge that you've already digested and assimilated guide your ear towards uh, the right ideas.
Mm. The second thing that you mentioned there was connecting the dots when you already
Mm-hmm.
are aware of chord scale relationship and you know that there's a particular scale that goes with a particular mode.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Connecting dots, meaning playing all the right notes that are there, but it gives the impression that it is busy. Is there
Mm-hmm.
anything you would recommend, to break down this uh, hectic playing?
Yeah, well, basically, what I was just saying, start to shift from the academic, um, playing all the right things, into more playing by ear. Um, One great way to do that is to sing what you play, and there are a couple of approaches to that. One is just don't even play the guitar, just sing a solo, and maybe alternate. This is a friend of mine, a really great jazz instructor named John McNeil, had me do this once. We were just playing a session, but it was sort of like an instructive session. And he said, just alternate singing a chorus and playing a chorus, and have it be sort of seamless. And when you're done, sorry, New York, and when you're done singing, say either out loud or to yourself, make it my voice, and then play as close to your singing voice as possible, so that the idea is that it's coming from you know a deeper creative place,
Mm,
and that you're actually hearing everything you're doing. I guess that's the central issue here.
mm. If you, if I'm a young musician that is going to a new course, a music program, a university program first year, and you're one of the professors there, and uh, what advice would you give me to get the most out of that musical experience going to first year at the university, studying jazz program or music improvised, program?
Um, well, it's been a while since I was in that position, and I don't have a position at a university, so I'm not like seeing people in that position that much. But what I would say is, well, one thing is at that age, you what I remember is that I could get away with much less sleep. So without neglecting your classes, I would still try to play as much as possible with other people. Do as much sessioning as you can. The skill of playing with others is really indispensable, and it's just as important as practicing on your own. And it's something that is actually easier than ever to ignore because you know we can sit in our bedroom and post videos on to YouTube and play along records and um, it's not even necessarily essential, you know, to to play with a band anymore. It seems so, but there's no other way to get that skill to play with a living, breathing rhythm section. Um, so I would make sure I made time even in my first year of college with all the classes and everything else I had to do and all the drinking I had to do. That was a joke. Um, yeah, play late into the night if that's the only time you have. Just and I do see people doing that. Um,
Would you say, especially now when we are not allowed to really perform and play and rehearse with the other musicians, that
mhm.
the skill of your musicianship is being challenged because you don't get to, maintain that dynamic or flexible carve of how to communicate with the musicians? Is it something that you would say in your particular case is very steady, or you can tell when you didn't play with the band for quite some time that it's floating
um,
rhythmically?
I can't really say because I haven't played with a band in quite a while. I've done a couple of streaming gigs over the course of the last 8 9 months. Um, yeah, the one time I played with, I think it was a couple of solo things and one thing with a band, and I don't know. It didn't feel great. I mean, for one thing, playing with a mask on is just weird. So that's kind of an
Mm.
obstacle. Um, I have another one coming up next week. We'll see how that goes. I mean, I have a feeling relative to my entire career, this is a short span of time. So I don't think that I will have lost anything permanently. Um, but it's definitely a hindrance for people that are coming up and are learning and are working on the skill of ensemble playing. Yeah, it's it's kind of a disaster, but you make the most of it. Um, you know, just practice as much as possible. Do what you can by yourself. Um, right. I mean, there's tons of things you can do. Um, and things that maybe you might have neglected if you hadn't had all this time for yourself. So
Ben, I'm really excited
yeah.
about this question because
Mm-hmm.
since you mentioned that you're now on a more professional side of things of music,
Mm-hmm.
uh, young musician entering the world of music business when they want to start their own careers as a profession, not only as a hobby or not the level of their professionalship, but or their
Yeah.
instrumentalship, but have it as a business.
Mm.
Now over the years, you know, either it has been rumors or maybe some people gathered some data about that would go it's
Mm-hmm.
not possible to make living of jazz, and people have got different background stories. Obviously for some people it works out, some people had brands from 40 years ago, and there are some up and young coming musicians now in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you start out your career business wise?
Well, I don't know how relevant my experience will be to today's. aspiring musicians, because it was 35 years ago or more. It was a very different world. Um, and I think there were many more means to make a living playing your instrument, not necessarily playing creative music, which I didn't really do per se for quite a while. But, you know, right out of college, or I didn't even really finish college. I dropped out with maybe a year and a half to go, and I was already working a lot, playing, more commercial gigs. The the wedding band scene was huge. Everyone had a giant band at their wedding. I don't think that happens anymore hardly. Uh, there were just like a lot more weird, different gigs. I just played all these really strange gigs all the time, and I was able to make a living. Also, rent was a lot cheaper in like the early '80s in New York. Like my first apartment was like I paid $160 a month, and and that persisted for quite a while. I just so my advice, keep as low of an overhead as possible. I don't, is it possible to make a living playing jazz? Yeah, it's possible, but it's probably like unlikely. Like I said in the beginning, there's so many people trying to do this now, way more than ever before. Part of it is that it seems like the academy uh, hosts so many more jazz programs. There's so many more students learning the skill, um, and so they're emptied out into the job market where they're just not. It just seems like how could there possibly be a place for everybody, and even everybody that's deserving. Um, so um, um, forgot, forgot, lost my train of thought, but
Are there any common combinations of jobs, that you hear from your friends? They during a day, I don't know, they work in the office, or during a day they work in a school. Is there something, that
mhm.
people could really balance out one way or another?
Yeah, there are a lot of people that I know that, well, a lot of people have teaching gigs. Most of the musicians don't have, that I know, don't have day jobs that are unrelated to music. They're generally teaching either on the college level or on an elementary school level. And that's a great way to maintain connection to music. Um, but you shouldn't underestimate how much time you're going to need to work on your craft. So that's what I mentioned. Like, keep your overhead low. Try to, if you can get away with it, try to make as little money as possible so that you have more hours to work on your craft. Um, and that was kind of my approach back when I started. I was just like doing my weddings and whatever, like R&B band gigs on weekends, and I generally had most of the week free to practice. Um, and I had friends that would not compromise and just didn't want to play anything unless they were behind it artistically 100%. And they got gigs as, you know, proofreaders. That was a big thing in the 80s. I don't know if people do that much anymore, but yeah, there's one point I learned all the proofreading symbols, but I never actually did it. Yeah, I definitely I had some like weird part-time day gigs though through my 20s, but we won't go into that. But proofreading wasn't one of them. But yeah, anyway, I had people that would prefer to like work in an office than to compromise their artistic integrity. Uh, but my thought was like, if I can make money with my hands on the guitar, then I'm learning something, getting something out of it. You know? And then later on I could be more like discerning about what work I took if if I had the option. um and I guess another thing is one needs an online presence now, right? I mean, a disaster at this, so I'm not the person to give advice, but it seems like most publicity is most people know you from what they see online more than anything else, more than like they're buying your records, which they don't do, or going to your gigs, which, you know, unless you're touring internationally all the time, that's not going to happen either. So it's like, I guess you sort of need to control your online presence, which it's it's a it's a complicated thing because I think it seems like it's like that the pressure to do that is changing the music itself. Like I see a lot of people with, you know, that are garnering reputations as great players are posting, you know, short like 30, 60-second clips of themselves. Um, and in order to do that and have an impact, you sort of have to do something really impressive. So there are like all these short, like super virtuosic samples of people's playing, but I think it's start changing the way people listen and the way people just even like apprehend music, you know. So in order to maybe like counteract that, I would suggest maybe, you know, if you need to do that, that great, do it, but at the same time, practice the art of listening, of like deep listening. See if you can like at least once a day listen to an entire piece of music, a classical, you know, like a symphony or an entire record, both sides. Well, okay, sorry. That's now I'm really showing my age. Oh man, yeah, slipped. But you know what I'm saying.
I know, I know. Now, Ben,
And you know, turn the screens off, turn your devices off. Just, it's a cliche, but seriously, work on your attention.
mhm, like imagine when what you're mentioning about listening. My attention span, and I work as a teacher. My attention span, if there's music I need to figure out very quickly, I
Mm-hmm.
go on YouTube, and without buying the record, you
Mm-hmm.
just see an extra view on somebody else's playlist, unfortunately, from me, though
Yeah.
they help me big time. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
s- any streaming platforms, it's super easy, and I don't even listen to the whole song. Just 20 seconds here, there, 10 seconds. I either need one intro arrangement or I need,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, a key to figure out. This is attention span, unfortunately, how busy teachers can be. Now, can we
Mm-hmm.
imagine our students be better than the teachers are at this point?
Yeah. Well, I understand that you need to do this just on a practical level, but that's why I say carve out some time in your day to counteract that by some concentrated deep listening. Um, and don't listen on YouTube. The sound on YouTube is awful. You know, like, and you're a musician, you know, you would, I imagine, would prefer somebody to buy your product. If you can possibly swing it, buy the record. It's going to sound better if you do it. If you do it, you know, whether you like order the CD or just download it in the highest resolution you can, buy it, and it'll, you know, you might not even be conscious of it, but the listening, the experience of listening to something that sounds better will just be, you know, some more profound experience. I mean, just compare like a YouTube version of something you like to the record version. I mean, and you just listen to them one after another. It's horrifying, you know. So yeah, that's my advice. I mean, yeah, if you just need to learn something quickly, then that's just like a kind of another category of activity.
I find
But
this
don't let
definitely.
that but don't let that be the entire, you know, your entire experience of listening to music. And then what's the point? You know?
I love how you called it. You labeled it listening experience. Uh, that's wonderful. Thanks, Ben. That's that's exactly what we needed. Listening experience,
Okay.
per day, because there's so much work that is put into a record, not only from the
Hmm.
artistic point of view, but people that are working in the studio, that are
Hmm.
mixing and mastering it, they want the listener to have the best experience to get the whole message
Yes.
across.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Absolutely.
so that's why people should buy records and should go to live gigs. Um,
Yes, please.
you see young musicians and you're very supportive just by saying yes, I'll give you a lesson, just come over to my apartment, or meet you in the school. And that means a lot, because for a lot of them, you're a person that is more experienced, and you're looking up to or they're looking up to you. And if people give them an approval of, okay, I'll give you a lesson, it
Mm-hmm.
gives them that extra enthusiasm and energy to keep
Mm-hmm.
on going, even when the things are a little bit harder in the school, or at home.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I would like to thank you for that, because you've got wonderful master classes that you recorded. Let's say my masterclass videos that you recorded there, they're wonderful, and
Oh, thanks.
they motivate students. That's for sure. They do motivate them. You're well known, for your um, not only your chordal stuff and your voicing and your advanced harmony when you're playing, but also for being an ambient player, with ambient sounds and do new sonic textures. People can tell within a second, that it's you playing on the record when you're playing with Ingrid Jensen, for instance. I mean, that's some wonderful playing from the whole band, or with your own trio. So it's wonderful that you're using social media or the platforms of online that allow you to actually deliver the education to more people that cannot travel to New York. We were talking, I was born in Czech Republic, so
Mm-hmm.
people from Czech Republic, they'll be quite pricey to fly over to New York. But even my friends, they'll be in Asia or in Africa, so it's great that these things exist. And it'd
Yeah.
be great if you put out more educational work. If there is something that we can look forward to, that'd be great.
Well, it's possible. I feel like I've said everything I know in the course of the three videos I did for a music masterclass. I don't have too much more to add to that, but yeah, maybe one day I'll learn something new and I'll share it.